Hi everyone, this is me, Kirill, your justice analyst. Welcome back to my channel. And today it's time for some new interesting Eurovision 2024 analytics video. Today we will talk about something quite different and unusual, I think, something what you have probably not seen on YouTube yet. So we will talk about how the countries' positions have changed in the televote in the final in comparison to the semi-final. So which songs maybe the televoters started to learn to like towards the final, or what was really enough for the televoters to hear just once, and in the final all the desire to vote for them has disappeared. Now let me explain you how exactly I have calculated these results in order to produce to you these top 5 increases in comparison to the semi-finals. So let's just take a look at the points of Moldova from the first semi-final of Eurovision 2024. As you can notice in these points, Cyprus has been ranked first. If we now transpose these points into the placings from 1 to 10 for all the 10 finalists. So you can see that Azerbaijan has been taken over, so they are all kind of, going a little bit up in order to fill this top 10. And then I'm doing kind of the same exercise in the final. So this is the final top of the televoters in Moldova. And you can see that here, for example, Cyprus is ranked 18th, which means that definitely some other countries from the first semi-final has taken over Cyprus. And now Cyprus has definitely lost some position in comparison to the competitors from the first semi-final. So if we transpose these points, then we get these results, where you can now see that Cyprus suddenly slided from the place 1 in the semi-final in comparison to the semi-final competitors to only place 7, so basically letting 6 other countries from the same semi-final to take over. So this is obviously a very extreme example. This is a valid example. It is from the real points of Moldova in Eurovision, but actually there is no other such example where the country would fall or rise for more than 4 positions. So I'm not sure what has happened there in Moldova, how many people they paid to in the semi-final to vote for Cyprus, but somehow this is what we have. But now let's, following this example, tune into our top 5 and see which 5 countries have actually got the best increases in comparison to their semi-final results. So our 5th best increase in the points in comparison to their semi-final points was with Greece. So Greece actually has improved in 44% of the countries which were voting in the second semi-final and in the final, which means almost half of the countries have decided by the time of the final that Greece song was maybe better than they have thought. And I think this is definitely due to the fact that Marina Sadi has got much better running order in the final in comparison to the semi-final. In the semi-finals, she was performing 3rd, which is like one of the worst spots you can have. I will remind you that spots 1 and 2 didn't even qualify. While in the finals, she got placed 12th, so kind of more or less in the middle, so much better spot to be not forgotten. As a result, she has improved her position even by 2 places in comparison to the semi-final competitors in 2 countries. This were Czechia and the Netherlands. Kinda unnoticed came also the fact that Marina Sati has actually finished higher than Armenia in accordance with the televote in the final. Of course, here we have to also consider that all the countries also from the first semi-final were voting now in the grand final. So let's say Cyprus gave her 12 points, which of course she couldn't get in the semi-final, but still in the semi-final, Armenia had almost double the points of Greece, or let's say at least 50% more than Greece, so by miles far from Greece. But I have to say there were also 3 countries which have decided by the time of the final to rank Marina lower than they did in the semi-final, so she lost 2 positions even in the tops of Belgium and Israel. And I think with Israel, it's not a huge surprise taking into account how kind of disrespectful Marina was acting towards Israeli representative Eden Golan after the second semi-final during the press rehearsals. So I think this definitely had an impact on her ranking in the Israeli televote. Take a look at yourself, 'cause that is what you need to do. So now we're not going so far, still staying in the Hellenic world, because the number 4 spot was now taken by Cyprus. So maybe you would not expect this because I have just shown in the beginning how much Cyprus has dropped in the top of Moldova. It also actually significantly dropped in the top of Azerbaijan, which also awarded Cyprus 12 points. So I think these 12 points from Azerbaijan and Moldova in the semi-final were sort of random. I would expect maybe these two countries were, I don't know, paying some people that they buy SIM cards and vote for these songs. I'm not really sure what's going on, but the final has kind of put Cyprus at more or less average placing in their tops in comparison to the other countries. But still, it didn't stop Cyprus from getting a better placement in the final in 59% of the countries who were voting in the first semi-final, so actually much more than Greece. So even these two fallbacks in Azerbaijan and Moldova didn't have so much impact. Celia had a great increase of 3 places in Finland, Germany and Lithuania, while one country, Poland, has ranked her even 4 places higher in the final in comparison to her semi-final result. But with Cyprus, I think for the same reason as with Greece, it's not a huge surprise. She was opening the first semi-final, there were some other bob entries coming afterwards, so actually in my opinion even her qualification was not as secure as for some other entries. But then in the finals, she was performing more towards the end. Even I have noticed with myself, I always liked the song, but in the semi-final, I had some other favorites who came later. I voted for them. I completely forgot about the existence of the song. And in the final, when it was towards the end, I realized, well, it's a really good song in comparison to the rest of the lineup. So I even have casted a couple of votes for Cypriot entry this year. So very nice increase for Cyprus. And I'm happy for Celia Kapsis, who was the youngest contestant this year, that she managed to get such a good result in Eurovision. So Bambithag and Ireland have managed to finish not only third in their semi-final, but also third in the overall top of the biggest increases in the results from semi-final to the final. So congrats, what a great result. I think here it is also easily explained by much better running order. Bambithag were one of the openers of the first semi-final. Later, not really so far, were coming the big favorites, Croatia, Ukraine, so it was not the best position for Bambithag. Still great result in the semi-final, great result in the final. But if we take a look at these individual tops, we can see that actually 67% of countries who were voting in the first semi-final have ranked Ireland higher in the final, so it's an incredible result. In 4 countries, Ireland has got 2 positions higher than it had in the semi-final. And in one country, it was Iceland, the result was even 3 positions higher. However, if we take a look at the points of Iceland, we can see that Iceland has awarded Ireland 3 points in the semi-final, which appears to be quite a low result, just place 8 from 14 entries. But then in the final top, Iceland has awarded Ireland again 3 points, so it means again 8th place, but this time not from some 14 semi-finalists, but from 24 other entries in the finals. So it means a huge increase, even though in points you cannot really see it. The Song of Ireland was so captivating, you kind of either hate it or you love it. And I think so many people who kind of decided to maybe switch from one female bob to another female bob in the final, or from one ballad to another ballad, if they were captivated by this performance in the semi-final, I think they were still voting for it in the final. And having this kind of dedicated fan base means that you will most probably increase, because some countries will definitely lose some support, while Ireland just maintained the same base and maybe even won more votes. This one took me really by surprise. I haven't really noticed that Finland has got so much more support in the final in comparison to the semi-final. I think maybe it's partially due to the same factor as with Ireland. So if you loved this performance in the semi-final, probably you will still love it in the final. So they had some dedicated fans who were not switching to some other joke entries, because the joke entry from the second semi-final, the one from the Netherlands, was not even performed in the final. It could have dragged some attention from Finland away. So Finland has got a decrease only in one country, it was actually Iceland, but in 13 other countries they have improved their positions, which means that 76% of countries who voted in the first semi-final ranked Finland somehow suddenly higher in the final. So the biggest increase by 4 places they have got in the televote of Moldova, which I have already shown in the beginning. So yeah, kind of a random voting there. But in 6 further countries, they improved by 2 places, in the rest just by 1 place. And we have to admit, Finland had a really good running order in the final. They were performed after 3 kind of dark entries from Serbia, Italy. Well, Italy is of course more like a summer song, but the performance was generally quite dark, and also Norway. So like 3 dark performances, and then comes Finland with this party with this huge egg, sparkles. So it definitely dragged some attention to them. And in general, their running order was pretty good. They were performing in the second half. So yeah, Finland somehow, without being noticed, almost became the biggest grower of the televoters in comparison to the semifinal. But who will be the first? I'm really curious if you can predict this. But now let's see who had the biggest increase in the televote support. It was actually very close between Finland and Switzerland. Finland has received more support in 76% of countries, while Switzerland actually only in 72% of countries. But Switzerland didn't fall in any countries, while, as I have already said, Finland has dropped in Moldova. And in general, I would say the increases which Switzerland got from the other countries were a little bit more significant than in case of Finland. That's why Switzerland has finished first. Before you start telling me, well, it's just because the Netherlands were disqualified, so of course the televoters have put Switzerland higher than in the semifinal. But for this, I will show you this graphics. So now you can see on your screen actually how these results were calculated. And you can notice that Netherlands were actually completely removed from this. So when I was already preparing the data, how the countries were ranked against each other in the semifinal, Netherlands were not considered, so it means that the Swiss entry got additional support in comparison to the other finalists and not in comparison to the Netherlands. And as you can see, they got 3 additional places in Italy, 2 places in the rest of the world, and 5 more countries. And in some countries, surprisingly, Nemo has managed to finish in the final from 24 or 25 entries, depending on which country was voting, even higher than from those 16 semifinalists or 15 semifinalists, again, depending on which country we are talking about. So this is really mind-blowing. Of course, we know that in the semifinal 2, Nemo was performing 4th, while performing 21st in the grand final. Also maybe due to the fact that Joost Klein fans were looking for a new favorite from semi 2, because they were not watching semi 1 and they were kind of more attached to the songs from semi 2, and then they chose Switzerland. But if you take a look, for example, at the Spanish vote, you can see that Nemo finished 5th in their vote in the grand final, so it means being awarded 6 points, while in the semifinal they were only on place 7 from the 16 semifinalists, so getting only 4 points. So this is really crazy to see how in the grand final your song might be much more appreciated than in the actual semifinal. And Swiss entry has definitely benefited from the fact that Israel has got a bit less support from the televoters in the final in comparison to the semifinal. One of the reasons would be, of course, the published Italian televote results from the semifinal, where we see with how big margin Eden has actually smashed the whole competition in the second semifinal with the televoting results. And the second reason would be, of course, that she was set to perform kind of in the beginning of the show in the grand final. So all these facts and the better running order in the final, of course, have led Nemo to getting much more support from the televoters in the grand final, and which resulted in Nemo even winning the contest. So you see, the running order and so many other factors can impact your result so much in Eurovision that you should definitely not underestimate them. So these were our 5 countries with the biggest increases in televote support in the final in comparison to the semifinal, in the countries which were voting, of course, both in their semifinal and in the grand final. So was something of this surprising for you, or was it all quite clear when you look at the running orders and so on? Please let me know down below in the comments, and very soon I will also publish the video with the bottom 5 countries, so actually the 5 countries which have kinda nicely let all others take their places in the televote tops of the countries who were voting for them in the semifinal. So don't forget to subscribe to see who these 5 countries will be. See you in the next one. Bye bye.